The maid was crying in the Mafia boss's kitchen when he locked the door and asked one question that could get a man killed. Who hurt you? At 2:43 in the morning, Blackthorn Manor was silent except for cold water striking steel. Claire Bennett stood over the sink with a split lip, one eye swelling shut and fingerprints darkening around her throat. She kept scrubbing the same copper pan because stopping meant remembering the hands that had pinned her against a brick wall. Then Dominic Russo walked in. He was the most feared man in Chicago, yet what happened next was not only about revenge, it was about debt, fear power, and the dangerous moment when protection begins to feel like love. Stay until the end, because every locked door in this story hides a different truth. Like the video and comment where you are watching from. 12 hours before Dominic Russo locked the kitchen door, Claire Bennett sat on the edge of a narrow bed and listened to a stranger explain how easily a life could be taken apart. The voice came through the cracked speaker of her phone, smooth and patient, trained to sound almost kind. Ms. Bennett, this is our final attempt to contact you regarding the outstanding balance on your mother's account. If payment arrangements are not made within 30 days, further legal action may be taken. Claire stared at the letter resting beside her on the faded blanket. Outstanding balance, $63,780. The number had once frightened her. Now it only exhausted her. She let the recording continue while the morning light pressed through the narrow window of the staff quarters. Beyond the glass lake, Michigan was the color of cold steel. Wind shook the bare branches surrounding Blackthorn Manor, scraping them against the stone walls with the sound of fingernails. The room held almost everything Claire still owned. 3 gray uniforms hung inside a small wooden wardrobe. A pair of worn shoes rested beneath the bed. On top of a cheap plastic dresser stood a photograph of her mother before the illness had hollowed out her cheeks and taken the brightness from her eyes. In the picture, Evelyn Bennett was laughing. Claire could no longer remember what had been funny. The collection message ended. Silence returned. Claire opened her banking application. Her account held $846. Her next payment was due in 4 days. Her rent on the apartment in Chicago was already late, even though she had not slept there in nearly 3 weeks. She could have given it up. The apartment was small old and always too cold in winter. The plumbing complained whenever someone upstairs took a shower. The living room window faced a brick wall, but it had been her mother's home. Claire had washed her hair over the kitchen sink when she became too weak to stand. She had slept beside her on the living room floor during the final week because the hospital bed had not arrived in time. She had held her hand at 3 in the morning, while an oxygen machine breathed louder and louder in the darkness. Losing the apartment felt like losing the last room in the world where her mother had existed. Claire deleted the voicemail, folded the collection notice, and slipped it into the pocket of her uniform. Then she stood. The mirror above the dresser reflected a woman who looked older than 28. Her brown hair was pulled tightly away from her face. Shadows rested beneath her eyes. A thin white scar crossed the inside of her wrist left by a broken medicine bottle during one of her mother's worst nights. She buttoned the uniform to her throat. By 6:30 she was downstairs. Blackthorn Manor sat behind iron gates on the edge of Lake Forest north of Chicago. The main house had been built from dark limestone and black timber with steep roofs and narrow windows that made it look less like a home than a fortress pretending to be one. Security cameras followed every vehicle that approached. Armed men patrolled the grounds beneath wool coats tailored to hide shoulder holsters. Luxury sedans arrived after sunset carrying men who never introduced themselves. Some left before dawn, some remained for days. Claire never asked why. The house had rules, and most of them were unspoken. Never enter Dominic Russo's study without permission. Never repeat a name heard behind a closed door. Never touch a weapon even if it was left on a table. Never look too closely at stains on the carpet. Never interrupt a conversation between soldiers. Never become memorable. Claire had become very good at the final rule. She cleaned fingerprints from crystal glasses while men discussed shipments moving through the Calumet River. She changed bed linens in rooms where pistols rested on nightstands beside silver watches. She carried coffee into meetings and left before the first envelope changed hands. The men rarely looked at her face. To them, she was gray fabric moving quietly along the walls. That morning, the manor was restless. 2 black vehicles idled near the east entrance. The guards wore earpieces and spoke in low voices. Someone had replaced the flowers in the formal dining room with nothing at all, leaving the table bare except for water glasses and ashtrays. Claire pushed her cleaning cart through the main corridor. The marble floor reflected the high windows and the armed men crossing between rooms. She entered the library shortly after 7. The room smelled of leather, old paper, and wood smoke. Books rose from the floor to the carved ceiling. Most had not been opened in years. Claire dusted the lower shelves, working carefully around a row of medical texts. One title caught her attention: Human Anatomy and Clinical Practice. She stopped. Her fingertips rested against the spine. 4 years earlier, she had owned a similar book. She had carried it across campus in a canvas bag, along with notebooks, pens, and the cheap lunches she packed each morning. She had completed almost 2 years of practical nursing courses before her mother's diagnosis. At first, Claire believed she could manage both: morning classes, evening shifts at a diner, hospital appointments, medication schedules, insurance calls. Then the chemotherapy began. Her mother stopped being able to climb the apartment stairs alone. Claire missed 1 class, then 3, then an entire week. Eventually, the school sent a letter explaining that she could return when her circumstances improved. Her circumstances never improved. Claire pulled the anatomy book halfway from the shelf. A diagram of the human heart appeared on the open page. Arteries, chambers, valves, precise names for the parts that kept a person alive. Footsteps sounded in the corridor. Claire closed the book and pushed it back into place. She had lifted her dusting cloth when Dominic Russo entered. 2 men followed him. He wore a charcoal suit and a black overcoat that still carried beads of rain along the shoulders. At 39, Dominic moved with the quiet control of someone who had never needed to hurry toward power because power waited for him. His face was lean, composed, and difficult to read. Dark hair was brushed back from his forehead. A faint scar passed beneath his right ear and disappeared beneath his collar. Claire lowered her gaze. Dominic walked to the long table in the center of the room. One of the men placed a leather folder before him. The other poured coffee. Claire moved toward the door. A glass slipped from the younger man's hand. It struck the corner of the table and shattered. A sharp edge cut across his palm. He swore and stepped back. Blood ran between his fingers and dropped onto the carpet. The second man frowned at the stain. "Get a towel." Claire was already moving. She took gauze, antiseptic, and medical tape from the small emergency. Box in her cart. The injured man held out his hand impatiently. "It's nothing. It will keep bleeding if you keep opening it," Claire said. He looked at her, surprised that she had spoken. Claire cleaned the cut. It was deeper than it first appeared, but the glass had missed the tendon. She folded gauze over the wound and wrapped it firmly around his palm. "Keep your fingers straight for a few minutes." The man flexed them immediately. The bandage darkened. Claire tightened it. "I said keep them straight." A brief silence followed. No one usually corrected Dominic Russo's men. Claire realized what she had done and stepped back. Dominic was watching her from the opposite side of the table. "You have done that before," he said. His voice was low and even. Claire looked toward his collar rather than his eyes. "I took care of my mother. For how long?" 2 years. Dominic glanced at the anatomy book she had left slightly out of line on the shelf. "You studied medicine nursing." Studied, I did not finish." He looked at her for another moment. "What is your name?" Her mouth became dry. "Claire Bennett." Dominic nodded once. "Thank you, Claire." She left the room with her hands tight around the handle of the cleaning cart. It was the longest conversation they had ever shared. By noon, she had almost convinced herself he would forget it. Cole Rourke arrived shortly after lunch. Claire first saw him through the kitchen window as he crossed the rear courtyard. Cole was broad across the shoulders and thick through the arms, built less like a soldier than a man who solved problems by leaning his full weight against them until they broke. His blonde hair was cut close to his scalp. A silver signet ring covered the smallest finger of his right hand. He worked collections for Dominic. Claire knew this because men sometimes returned with him carrying split lips and empty pockets. Cole entered the kitchen without removing his coat. The cooks stopped speaking. He crossed to the coffee station, poured half a cup, and added whiskey from a silver flask. Claire was arranging clean utensils inside a drawer. Cole leaned against the counter beside her. "You always this quiet," Claire continued working. "I am working." That was not an answer. She closed the drawer and reached for the next one. Cole placed his hand against it, preventing her from opening it. His ring tapped softly against the wood. Claire looked at his hand, then at him. "Please move." A smile touched the corner of his mouth. "Please," he repeated the word as though testing how it sounded. Claire stepped to the side. Cole caught one of the strings of her apron between two fingers. It tightened against her waist. She pulled it free. The head cook stood near the stove, his eyes lowered to the pot in front of him. A dishwasher suddenly became interested in stacking plates. Everyone had seen. No one spoke. Cole looked around the room and smiled wider. Then he released the apron. "You should loosen up, Claire." The use of her name sent a cold sensation through her. She had never told him what it was. Cole lifted his coffee and walked away. The kitchen breathed again after the door closed behind him. Claire turned toward the head cook. "Does he come in here often?" The older man did not look at her. "Stay out of his way. That is what I was trying to do." He wiped the edge of the stove with a towel. "Try harder." Claire returned to the utensils. Her hands shook for several minutes. Later that afternoon, she carried linens through the rear corridor and noticed that the light above the service entrance was not working. The corridor ended at a steel door opening onto a narrow alley beside the estate's loading area. Staff used it to carry trash to the dumpsters and receive food deliveries. Without the exterior light, the alley disappeared into shadow. Claire found the maintenance supervisor near the boiler room. "The bulb outside the service entrance is out." He was writing entrances out. He was writing on a clipboard. "I will handle it. It was out yesterday, too." He looked up irritated. "I said I will handle it." Cole stood at the end of the corridor speaking to one of the guards. His gaze shifted toward Claire. She looked away. The light remained dark. At 6, Claire helped serve dinner in the formal dining room. Dominic sat at the head of the table with 6 men. Cole occupied a chair near the far end. The conversation stopped whenever staff entered. Claire placed a plate before Dominic. He did not look at her, but she noticed the bandage she had wrapped that morning, resting on the hand of the man beside him. It was still clean. When Claire reached Cole, he leaned back to give her space. For a moment she thought the earlier incident had meant nothing. Then his fingers brushed the back of her thigh beneath the edge of the table. The contact lasted less than a second. Claire almost dropped the plate. Cole continued speaking to the man beside him as though nothing had happened. Claire stepped away. Her face felt hot. She finished serving the room without looking at him again. At 10, most of the staff retired to their quarters. Claire remained in the lower kitchen. She had volunteered for the late shift because it paid an additional $40. $40 covered 3 days of interest on her mother's debt. The house gradually became quiet. At 11:30, Noah Grant entered the kitchen. He was Dominic's head of security, a tall former Marine with close-cut dark hair and a permanent line between his eyebrows. He checked the rear door, tested the lock, then looked at the dark monitor mounted near the pantry. "Camera's out again," he said into his radio. A voice responded through static. "Probably the line. Check the fuse in the morning." Noah turned. Claire was rinsing glasses at the sink. "The light outside is not working either," she said. He glanced toward the door. "I will have maintenance replace it. I told them earlier. I will make sure it gets done." His tone was not unkind, but he walked away without checking the alley. Claire watched the monitor remain black. By 1 in the morning, the last cook had gone to bed. Claire tied 2 heavy garbage bags and carried them toward the service entrance. She paused with her hand on the door. The camera screen remained dark. The hallway behind her was empty. She told herself she was being ridiculous. The dumpsters were less than 30 feet away. Guards patrolled the property. Nothing happened inside Blackthorn Manor unless Dominic Russo allowed it. Claire opened the door. Cold air struck her face. The alley smelled of wet brick, old grease, and lake wind. Rain had fallen earlier, leaving the pavement slick beneath the weak glow spilling from a distant security lamp. The bulb above her remained dead. Claire carried the bags toward the dumpsters. Their weight pulled against her shoulders. She lifted the first lid, threw the bags inside, and let it slam shut. The sound echoed between the stone walls. She turned. Cole stood between her and the service door. He had removed his coat. His white shirt was open at the collar. His eyes were unfocused and whiskey colored his breath. Claire stopped. "You are not supposed to be back here." Cole laughed softly. "I am allowed anywhere in this house." She moved to her left. He matched her. "I need to get inside. You always in a hurry to get away from me. I am working." There it is again. He stepped closer. That same answer. Claire looked past him toward the steel door. "Move." Cole's expression changed. The smile remained, but the warmth left it. "You think you can talk to me like that? I am asking you to move. You should be asking me for something else." He reached for her arm. Claire pulled away. Cole caught her wrist. His grip closed with immediate bruising force. "Let go. You work in this house because men like me keep it standing. I said let go. You get your room, your food, your little envelope every Friday." His thumb pressed against the inside of her wrist. "You owe somebody for that." Claire drove her elbow into his ribs. Cole grunted. His grip loosened. She twisted free and ran toward the service door. He caught her before she reached it. His hand closed around the back of her uniform and pulled hard. The collar tore. Claire spun and shoved him. For 1 second, anger overcame fear. "You touch me again, I will scream." Cole struck her. His fist connected with the left side of her face. White light burst across her vision. She hit the brick wall and slid toward the pavement. The world tilted. Before she could rise, Cole grabbed the front of her throat. He dragged her upright. Her shoes scraped across the wet ground. The pressure crushed the air from her lungs. Claire clawed at his wrist. His silver ring cut into her skin. "You make one sound," he said, "and they will find you in the lake." She tried to breathe. Nothing came. Cole pushed her harder against the wall. The boss does not care about maids. Darkness tightened around the edges of her vision. "You are furniture." His face moved closer. And furniture does not talk. Headlights appeared beyond the iron fence. A vehicle turned onto the service road. Cole looked toward it. His grip loosened. Claire collapsed onto her knees, coughing and pulling air into her burning throat. Cole adjusted his shirt. He crouched beside her. "I know where your apartment is." Claire stared at the wet pavement. "Friday night," he said. "You will be there." The headlights moved closer. Cole stood and walked away through the shadows. He disappeared around the side of the house before the vehicle reached the gate. Claire remained on the ground. Cold rainwater soaked through the knees of her uniform. Her face pulsed in time with her heartbeat. Each breath cut through her ribs. She wanted to call the police. She wanted to run to Noah. She wanted to find Dominic Russo and tell him exactly what one of his men had done beneath his cameras. Then she imagined Cole standing outside her mother's apartment. She imagined the collection notice on her bed. She imagined losing the job, the room, the apartment, and the last fragile structure holding her life together. Claire rose slowly. The steel door was still unlocked. She entered the house. No one saw her cross the lower corridor. No one saw her return to the kitchen. She turned on the cold water because her hands would not stop shaking. She found a copper pan inside the sink. She began to scrub. The memory of Cole's fingers remained on her throat. She scrubbed harder. At 2:43, the kitchen door opened. Dominic Russo stood in the doorway with a glass in his hand. The night returned to the moment when Claire's silence finally failed her. Now she sat on a metal stool beneath the fluorescent lights while Dominic stood several feet away. The warm cloth he had given her rested against her split lip. He had not spoken since she said Cole's name. Claire watched his face. She had expected anger. Instead, he looked calm. That frightened her more. Dominic took out his phone. "Mr. Russo." He looked at her. "If you confront him, he will say I lied." Dominic unlocked the screen. "He can say whatever he likes." "You do not know me. I know enough." "No, you do not." Her voice cracked. "You know my name. You know I clean your rooms. You do not know whether I am honest." Dominic placed the phone on the granite island. "Then tell me exactly what happened." Claire lowered the cloth. "I already told you. You gave me a name." His gaze moved to the bruises on her throat. "Give me the truth attached to it." She looked toward the locked door. Dominic pulled another stool from beneath the island and sat opposite her. He was still taller, even seated, but the shift brought his eyes closer to her level. "Start when you opened the service door." Claire pressed the cloth to her mouth again. The light was out. How long? At least 2 days. The camera. Black. A muscle moved in Dominic's jaw. Continue. Claire described the alley. The garbage bags. Cole standing between her and the door. She repeated his words, though each one tasted worse the second time. She showed Dominic the place on her wrist where Cole had grabbed her. She told him about the punch, the wall, the hand around her throat. When she repeated Cole's claim that the boss did not care about maids, Dominic's eyes became completely still. Claire finished with the threat against her apartment. Dominic said nothing for several seconds. Then he asked, "Why did you come back inside? I work here." "That is not an answer. I need the money." How badly Claire laughed once, but there was no humor in it. Badly enough to wash dishes after a man told me he was coming to my home. Dominic waited. Claire reached into her pocket and pulled out the folded collection notice. She placed it on the island. The paper was soft along the creases from being opened too many times. Dominic read the number. "Your debt, my mother's. She died 2 years ago, and they are still collecting from you." Claire looked at the floor. "If I miss another payment, they can take me to court. If they freeze my account, I cannot pay rent. If I lose this job, I lose the apartment." Dominic folded the notice once, carefully. "You stayed silent because of this. I stayed silent because Cole has a gun. He threatened you. He did not need to." She looked up at him. "Everyone in this house is afraid of him." Dominic's expression did not change. "Are you afraid of me?" Claire thought of the deadbolt, the quiet voice, the bloodless calm. "Yes." Dominic accepted the answer without offense. "Good." Her brow tightened. "Good fear is honest." He placed the notice back on the island. But fear should point in the correct direction. Claire's fingers tightened around the cloth. "I am not brave enough to lose everything." Dominic leaned forward, his forearms resting on his thighs. "You came back into this house after he threatened to kill you." His eyes held hers. "You stood at that sink and kept working." A pause. "Do not tell me you are not brave." Claire looked away before he could see the effect of the words. Dominic reached for his phone again. This time she did not stop him. He called Noah. "Lock down the property." His voice returned to the tone he used when speaking to his men. Flat, precise. Noah answered immediately. "Is there a breach?" "Yes." Dominic looked at the torn collar of Claire's uniform. "Internal." A pause followed. "No one leaves." Dominic continued. "Check the service entrance, the exterior light, the camera line. Preserve everything." Claire felt the room shrink around her. Dominic's gaze remained on her. "Bring Cole Rourke to the east garage." Noah's voice lowered. "Is this disciplinary?" Dominic turned the folded collection notice beneath his fingertips. "No." His eyes moved to the fingerprints around Claire's throat. "It is final." Noah did not ask another question. The line went silent. Dominic placed the phone beside Claire's collection notice and stood. For several seconds, neither of them moved. The kitchen seemed smaller now. The stainless steel counters reflected the hard white light above them. The deadbolt remained locked. Claire could hear the blood moving through her ears. Dominic walked to the sink. He ran a clean cloth beneath warm water, wrung it out, and held it toward her. "Keep pressure on your lip." Claire took it. "What are you going to do?" Dominic reached for his glass on the island. The ice had melted into the bourbon. "I am going to find out whether Cole understands what he has done. You already decided." "Yes." "Then why question him?" Dominic looked toward the door. "Because a man should hear the charge before the sentence." Claire rose from the stool too quickly. Pain cut through her ribs. She caught the edge of the island. Dominic turned at once. His hand moved toward her, then stopped before touching her. "Sit down. I do not want anyone killed because of me." His eyes settled on her face. "This is not because of you. He attacked me. He disabled security on my property. He lied to my men. He threatened an employee under my roof." Dominic's voice remained quiet. He believed my rules did not apply to him. Claire pressed the cloth against her mouth. "That sounds like something you are telling yourself." A long silence followed. Dominic studied her. Most people lowered their eyes when he became quiet. Claire had spent the night being afraid of men who expected her silence. She had very little left to protect. "You think I need permission to punish him?" Dominic asked. "No. Then what do you think I am telling myself, that this is about your rules because admitting it is about me would make it personal? The words stayed between them. Dominic's expression did not change, but something behind it did. Claire saw it in the slight tightening at the corner of his mouth. He picked up his phone and collection notice. You should not be alone. I have been alone all night. Not anymore. He unlocked the kitchen door and opened it. Noah stood in the hallway with 2 guards. His eyes moved to Claire's face, then to Dominic. His posture became rigid. The east garage is secure, Noah said. Cole on his way down. Dominic handed him the collection notice. Make a copy. Return the original to Claire. Noah glanced at the amount but gave no reaction. Dominic looked at one of the guards. Stay outside this door. Claire stepped forward. I do not need a guard. Dominic faced her. That is not for you. Then who is it for everyone else? He walked into the hallway. Noah followed. The second guard remained by the kitchen door. Claire watched Dominic disappear around the corner. His footsteps were measured. There was no anger in them. That was what frightened her most. The east garage occupied the lowest level of the manor beneath the main courtyard. It had no windows and only 2 exits. The walls were poured concrete. The floor had been scrubbed so often that the gray surface had lost its shine. Cole Rourke stood beneath a single ceiling light. 2 men had searched him before bringing him down. His gun knife wallet and silver flask rested on a metal table near the wall. Noah entered first. Dominic followed. Cole looked from one man to the other. His shirt was still open at the collar. Whiskey remained in his blood, but fear had begun to sharpen his eyes. What is this? Dominic removed his suit jacket and placed it across the back of a chair. Where were you at 1:15 this morning? Cole shrugged. Drinking. Where around? Dominic unfastened his watch. Noah held out his hand and accepted it. Try again. Cole glanced toward the doors. At the house. The house has many rooms. I do not remember. Dominic rolled his sleeves once. The motion was calm and exact. Noah placed a clear evidence bag on the metal table. Inside it lay a silver ring. Cole's right hand moved instinctively toward his smallest finger. The ring was missing. Dominic noticed. Noah spoke. We found blood on the edge of the ring. Fresh. We also found a button near the service dumpster. Cole's eyes shifted. The camera covering that alley lost power at 12:58. Noah continued. Someone removed the fuse by hand. Cole gave a humorless laugh. You bring me into a garage over a broken camera. Dominic moved closer. Over Claire Bennett. Cole's expression changed. Not fear, recognition, then annoyance. This is about the maid Dominic stopped an arm's length away. Her name is Claire. Cole looked at Noah as though expecting him to share the joke. Noah did not move. Cole rubbed his jaw. She told you something. Dominic said nothing. She came on to me. Noah's eyes hardened. Cole saw it and adjusted quickly. She was upset. I tried to calm her down. She took it the wrong way. Dominic looked at the ring inside the bag. With your fist, Cole's mouth opened. No words came. With your hand around her throat, she fought me. Dominic lifted his gaze. The garage became very still. Cole realized what he had admitted. He stepped back. It got out of control. Dominic followed at the same slow pace. Who removed the camera fuse? Cole looked toward Noah. No idea. Who unscrewed the light over the service door? I said I do not know. Dominic stopped. Claire reported that light yesterday afternoon. Cole swallowed. You were standing in the corridor when she did. Noah placed another evidence bag on the table. Inside it was a small brass fuse marked with a black line. Found in his coat pocket, Noah said. Cole stared at it. Then he laughed. The sound was thin. Fine. I wanted privacy. Dominic's face became empty. Cole lifted both hands. I was drunk. That explains the whiskey. It was a mistake, no. Dominic's voice was almost gentle. A mistake is taking the wrong road. A mistake is sending money to the wrong account. He stepped closer. You removed a light. You killed a camera. You waited for a woman who could not afford to lose her job. Cole's breathing changed. You planned it. She is staff. The words came out too quickly. Cole must have seen something in Dominic's eyes because he continued at once. I did not know she mattered. Noah looked away. Dominic did not. That is your defense. Cole's jaw tightened. She cleans floors, Dom. The name landed heavily in the concrete room. Since when do we lose good men over servants? Dominic took one more step. Cole's back touched the wall. You are not a good man. No one here is. True. Dominic looked at the bruised knuckles on Cole's right hand. But most of them understand discipline. Cole's face flushed. I collect money no one else can collect. I put fear into men twice my size. I have made you millions. You made me careless. Cole stared at him. Dominic continued. I tolerated your temper because it was useful. I allowed myself to believe usefulness was the same as loyalty. For the first time, guilt entered his voice. It lasted only a second. I was wrong. Cole shook his head. This is insane. No. Insane would be allowing you to remain after you proved you cannot distinguish power from permission. Cole looked at Noah. Tell him. Noah's face remained cold. You disabled my security, Dominic said. You attacked someone under my protection. Then you threatened to carry that attack into her home. Cole's fear turned to anger. Your protection. He laughed again, louder this time. She is a maid. Dominic removed his cufflinks and placed them beside his watch. Cole stopped laughing. Dominic rolled his sleeves higher. Noah. Yes, leave us. Noah glanced at Cole, then at Dominic. He understood the order. The two guards stepped outside with him. Before closing the door, Noah looked once toward the concrete drain in the center of the floor. Then, the garage door shut. Claire sat in the kitchen with both hands wrapped around a glass of water. The guard outside did not speak. She tried to listen through the ceiling. The manor had gone quiet. No footsteps, no voices, no doors. She imagined Cole laughing. She imagined Dominic asking questions. She imagined a gunshot. None came. The silence stretched until she could no longer tell whether 20 minutes or an hour had passed. A dull impact sounded somewhere above her. Claire flinched. The glass slipped in her hand. Water spilled across the island. Then silence returned. She stared at the locked kitchen door. Her first instinct was to run. Her second was to stay exactly where Dominic had left her. She hated both instincts. Footsteps approached. Slow, heavy. The guard outside straightened. A knock sounded against the door. Claire. Dominic's voice. She stood and crossed the kitchen. The guard stepped aside. Claire unlocked the door. Dominic stood in the corridor without his jacket. His sleeves were rolled to his elbows. The skin over his knuckles was torn. Blood darkened one cuff. It did not appear to be his. Claire stared at it. Dominic entered. Lock the door. She did. He went directly to the sink. Hot water struck the steel basin. Dominic poured soap into his palms and began to scrub. He washed each finger with the methodical care of a surgeon. Pink water circled the drain. Claire remained near the door. Where is Cole? Dominic did not look up. He will not return to Blackthorn Manor. Is he alive? Dominic rinsed his hands. He is no longer your concern. That is not an answer. It is the answer I am giving you. Claire watched the water clear. You said a man should hear the charge before the sentence. He heard it. And then Dominic turned off the faucet. He dried his hands slowly. Then he understood it. Claire looked at the blood on his sleeve. A cold weight settled in her stomach. You killed him. Dominic met her eyes. She expected denial. He gave none. Claire stepped back. Relief rose inside her before she could stop it. The feeling disgusted her. Cole would never stand outside her apartment. He would never put his hands on another woman. He would never wait in another dark alley. Claire hated herself for being grateful. Dominic saw the conflict on her face. You do not have to forgive what I did. I did not ask you to do it. No, you did it anyway. Yes. Why Dominic placed the towel beside the sink? Because he would have done it again. You do not know that. I do. How? Because he called it a mistake. Claire said nothing. Dominic's voice hardened. Men like Cole do not make that kind of mistake. They make a choice. Then they make it again until someone removes the choice from them. Claire pressed a hand against her ribs. Pain tightened beneath her skin. Dominic noticed. His gaze moved to the bruising around her throat. I called a doctor. I cannot pay for a doctor. You will not. I do not want your money. This is not charity. What is it? Responsibility. Before Claire could answer, someone knocked. Dominic opened the door. A woman in her 50s entered carrying a black medical case. Her gray hair was tied neatly behind her head. She wore a dark coat over blue scrubs. Dr. Harris, Dominic said. This is Claire Bennett. The doctor looked at Claire's face and immediately set down her case. How long ago? About 2 hours, Claire said. Dr. Harris glanced at Dominic. I need privacy. Dominic walked toward the door. Claire looked at him. He paused. For one brief moment, she almost asked him to stay. The thought startled her. Dominic left without being told twice. Dr. Harris examined Claire beneath the bright kitchen lights. She checked her pupils, throat ribs, and breathing. She asked questions in a calm voice and waited for real answers. When her fingers touched the deepest bruise, Claire jerked away. Dr. Harris stopped at once. You are in control of this examination, she said. I will tell you before I touch you. Claire nodded. The doctor continued more slowly. The examination revealed a fractured rib, a mild concussion, and heavy soft tissue damage around the throat. You were fortunate, Dr. Harris said. Claire looked toward the door. No, the word left her before she could soften it. I was not. Dr. Harris held her gaze. No, she said quietly. You were not. She gave Claire medication for pain and swelling along with written instructions. Someone should wake you every 2 hours tonight. I can manage. You should not be alone. Claire almost laughed. The sentence seemed to follow her everywhere. Dominic waited in the hallway. When the doctor stepped out, he moved away from the wall. How bad? Dr. Harris closed her case. She has a fractured rib and a concussion. The pressure around her throat could have caused serious damage. Dominic's eyes became flat. She needs rest, the doctor continued. No work for several days. Claire stepped into the hallway. I can work. Dr. Harris turned. You can breathe. That is enough for tonight. Dominic looked at the guard. Take Claire to the staff wing. I can walk by myself, I know. Then stop giving orders about me while I am standing here. The guard became very interested in the floor. Dominic studied Claire for a moment. Then he looked at her rather than the guard. Go to your room. Lock the door. Rest. Claire held his gaze. That is still in order. Yes, at least you admit it. Something almost human moved across his face. It disappeared before she could name it. Claire walked toward the staff quarters alone. No guard followed. At 6:30 the next morning, she woke to someone knocking on her door. Pain had settled into every part of her body. She opened the door to find Samuel Price waiting in the corridor. He was a thin man with silver-framed glasses and a navy vest buttoned over a white shirt. He held a manila folder against his chest. Miss Bennett, yes. Mr. Russo asked that you come to the accounting office. Claire looked at the clock. I was told not to work. This is not work. Samuel glanced at the bruises on her face and immediately lowered his eyes. He said it could not wait. The accounting office occupied the second floor behind a frosted glass door. 2 computer monitors glowed on Samuel's desk. Ledgers filled one wall. A heavy steel safe stood behind a framed painting of the Chicago skyline. Claire sat in the chair opposite him. Samuel opened the folder. Her collection notice lay inside. The current balance is $63,780. Claire tightened her fingers in her lap. I know. Mr. Russo instructed me to settle it. She stared at him. No. Samuel adjusted his glasses. He was very specific. I did not agree. Samuel looked uncomfortable. I am not the person to discuss that with. Then do not send the money. I am also not the person with the authority to refuse him. He turned one monitor toward her. A transfer form filled the screen. The amount had already been entered. Claire rose. I will talk to him. Samuel held up one hand. There is something else. He removed a typed document from the folder. This states that the payment creates no employment obligation, personal obligation repayment agreement, or transfer of property. Claire read the first line again. Transfer of property. Samuel cleared his throat. Mr. Russo wanted the language broad. Why, he said, you might believe the money gave him a claim over you. Claire looked at the signature at the bottom. Dominic Russo. Samuel placed a pen beside the document. You are not required to sign. Your signature only confirms that you received the statement. Claire remained standing. On the desk, $63,000 waited to disappear with the press of a key. For 2 years, that number had decided what she ate, where she slept, and how many hours she could afford to rest. She thought of the apartment, her mother's photograph, the oxygen machine breathing in the dark. Do it, Claire whispered. Samuel entered the final command. The computer asked for confirmation. He clicked once. A printer came alive beside the desk. The sound was ordinary. That made it worse. One sheet of paper emerged. Samuel stamped it and slid it toward her. Balance paid in full. Amount due $0. Claire stared at the page. Her chest tightened. She had imagined this moment many times. She had imagined joy. Instead, grief rose through her so violently that she had to sit down. Her mother was dead. The bills were gone. Nothing remained to pay for. A tear moved down Claire's cheek. She wiped it away before it reached her jaw. Samuel looked toward the window. "She died," Claire said. He did not answer, and I kept paying for it. Samuel's hands rested on the desk. "I am sorry." Claire folded the confirmation page. "Do not thank me," he said quietly. "I was not going to." A faint nervous smile touched his face. The boss ordered the transfer. Claire put the paper into her pocket. "That is exactly why I am not grateful yet." Dominic was in his study. He stood beside the window with a cup of black coffee in his hand. A fresh white shirt concealed the blood from the night before, but the skin over his knuckles remained bruised and split. Claire entered without a cleaning cart. Dominic turned. His eyes moved over her face, checking the swelling. She placed the transfer confirmation on his desk. "You paid enough money to buy the rest of my life." Dominic set down his coffee. "I did not buy anything. Men like you do not give away $63,000. "No." "Then what did you purchase?" "An end to the problem. I am the problem, the debt." Claire stepped closer to the desk. "That debt was mine. It made you vulnerable. It made me responsible. It made you desperate." His words struck harder than she expected. Dominic continued. "It made you accept work you were afraid to lose. It made Cole believe he could threaten your paycheck and control your silence. You removed his leverage, yes, and replaced it with yours." Dominic became still. Claire waited. He opened the top drawer of his desk and removed a thick envelope. He placed it beside the transfer confirmation. 3 months of wages. Claire did not touch it. "A severance agreement," he continued. "The apartment is safe. The collection agency has no claim. A car can take you anywhere you choose. You want me to leave. I want you to be able to." Claire looked at the envelope. "And if I stay," Dominic's gaze held hers, "then you stay because you choose this house." His eyes darkened. "Not because you owe me." Claire looked at the bruises across his knuckles, at the quiet violence still clinging to him, at the open envelope that could buy her way out. For the first time in years, a door stood in front of her without a debt blocking it. She did not take the money. She returned to the staff wing. By afternoon, everyone in Blackthorn Manor knew that Cole Rourke was gone. No one said his name. When Claire entered the main corridor, 2 armed men stopped speaking and stepped aside. In the kitchen, a soldier abandoned his coffee the moment she approached the counter. A guard opened a door for her without meeting her eyes. No one touched her. No one looked too long. Dominic's protection surrounded her like reinforced glass. She was safe inside it. She was also completely alone. That night, Claire returned to her room. A white envelope rested beneath the door. There was no name on it. She locked the door before opening it. Inside was a photograph of Cole's empty locker. Someone had removed his clothes, his boots, and every trace that he had ever lived in the manor. Claire turned the photograph over. 5 words had been written across the back in black ink. "The boss cannot protect you forever." A soft footstep sounded in the corridor. Claire lifted her eyes toward the door. The shadow beneath it moved away. Claire remained beside the door until the corridor fell silent. The photograph trembled between her fingers. Cole's empty locker stared back at her from the glossy paper. His boots were gone. His coat was gone. Even the metal nameplate had been removed. Whoever had taken the picture wanted her to understand that a man could disappear inside Blackthorn Manor without leaving so much as a crease in the air. The message on the back carried a different warning. Dominic had ended one threat. Someone else had been watching. Claire opened her door. The corridor was empty. A row of dim wall lamps stretched toward the main house. Every door in the staff wing was closed. A radiator clicked somewhere behind the walls. She stepped into the hallway. No one moved at either end. Claire locked her room again, slipped the photograph into her pocket, and walked toward the stairs. Dominic's study was still lit. She knocked once. "Come in." He stood behind his desk, reading from a stack of shipping reports. The bruise across his knuckles had darkened. His suit jacket hung over the back of a chair. A glass of untouched whiskey rested near his right hand. Dominic looked up when Claire entered. His attention went first to her face, then to the way she held one arm against her ribs. "You should be resting." Claire removed the photograph from her pocket and placed it on the desk. Dominic did not touch it immediately. He read the message. The room changed. His expression remained calm, but the silence around him sharpened. "Where did you find this under my door? When, 5 minutes ago? Did you see anyone? A shadow?" "I heard footsteps." Dominic picked up the photograph by one corner. "Did you touch anything else, the envelope? Where is it in my room?" He reached for the phone. Claire placed her hand over it. Dominic looked at her fingers. "I am not being locked in my room. I was going to call Noah, and then you were going to put a guard outside my door." "Yes." "No." Dominic leaned back slightly. The answer was not one he heard often. "Someone entered the staff wing." "I know. They knew which room was yours." "I know. They had access to Cole's locker. I understand what the photograph means. Then why are you arguing? Because yesterday you told me I was free." His eyes held hers. "You are. Freedom is not a room with a man standing outside it. This is not a philosophical discussion. It becomes one when you decide where I am allowed to walk." Dominic's jaw tightened. Claire could see the command forming behind his eyes. She waited for it. Instead, he removed his hand from the phone. "What do you suggest?" The question caught her off guard. "I suggest you find out who took the photograph. I intend to, and I continue working." "No. You asked what I suggest. I did not promise to agree." Claire folded her arms, then winced when the movement pulled at her rib. Dominic saw it. His gaze dropped to her side. "Sit down. I am not fragile. You have a fractured rib. I had one when I walked in." Dominic pushed the chair opposite his desk toward her with his foot. Claire sat because standing had begun to hurt. He picked up the phone and called Noah. "Come to my study." Noah arrived less than 2 minutes later. Dominic handed him the photograph. Noah read the message twice. His expression hardened. "I cleared the staff corridor after Cole was removed." "Not well enough," Dominic said. Noah accepted the rebuke without defending himself. "I will pull the interior footage. Do it quietly." Noah nodded. Dominic continued. "No public lockdown. No additional guards in the staff wing." Noah glanced at Claire. "That leaves her exposed. She has made her opinion clear." Claire looked at Dominic. He had not agreed with her. He had listened. That distinction mattered. Noah slipped the photograph into an evidence sleeve. "I will need the envelope." Claire gave him her room key. "The door is locked." Noah took it. "I will return this myself." He left. Dominic remained behind the desk. Claire stood. "Thank you. I did not do it for gratitude. No. You seem to dislike that. I dislike debts. You paid mine, and gave you permission to leave. Permission is another word men use when they think the choice belongs to them." Dominic's eyes narrowed. For 1 second, Claire believed she had gone too far. Then the corner of his mouth moved. It was not a smile. It was the memory of one. "You should go to bed," he said. That sounded almost polite. "Do not become reckless." Claire turned toward the door. "Do not confuse speaking honestly with recklessness." She left before he could answer. The following morning, the light above the rear service entrance burned brighter than the rest of the corridor. 2 new cameras watched the alley from opposite angles. A red emergency button had been installed beside the steel door. The old lock had been replaced with a reinforced electronic plate. Claire stood several feet away holding a garbage bag. The plastic pulled against her fingers. She had volunteered to take the first load out before breakfast. Now she could not make her body move. Her palm rested on the door handle. The smell of wet brick seemed to reach her through the metal. She heard Cole's voice. "Furniture does not talk." Her throat tightened. The corridor behind her remained empty. Claire lowered the bag. She could leave it for someone else. No one would blame her. That was the problem. She did not want Blackthorn Manor to become a collection of places she could no longer enter. Footsteps sounded behind her. Dominic approached without his usual jacket. He wore a dark shirt with the sleeves buttoned at the wrists. He stopped several feet away. Claire did not turn. "You replaced the light." "Yes." "And the cameras." "Yes. You could have done that before." The words came out sharper than she intended. Dominic accepted them. "I could have." Claire looked at him. There was no excuse in his face, no claim that he had not known, only the recognition that his house had failed someone who depended on it. She looked back at the door. "I need to take this outside. You do not." "Yes." Dominic did not offer to carry the bag. He did not tell her she was safe. He stepped past her, opened the steel door, and held it. White security lights flooded the alley. A guard stood near the dumpsters. The wet pavement glistened beneath the cameras. Claire's legs felt weak. Dominic remained beside the open door. He kept one hand on the frame. He did not touch her. Claire picked up the bag. She walked outside. The cold air struck her face. Every muscle in her body prepared for someone to step from the shadows. No one did. She crossed the alley, lifted the dumpster lid, and threw the bag inside. The metal slammed. Claire flinched. Then she turned and walked back. Dominic had not moved. She crossed the threshold. He let the door close behind her. Neither of them spoke. Claire continued toward the kitchen. After several steps, she looked back. Dominic still stood beside the door watching the lock engage. That afternoon, Claire found the anatomy book waiting on the small table in the staff sitting room. A note rested on top. "You left this out of place." There was no signature. She knew the handwriting. Claire carried the book to the library after her shift. Dominic was alone near the fireplace reading through a folder. She placed the book on the table beside him. "I did not leave it out of place." He turned a page. "No, you placed it where I would find it. That sounds inefficient. You could have simply told me to take it." Dominic looked up. "Would you have Claire considered the question?" "No." "Then my method was efficient." She sat in the chair opposite him without being invited. He noticed, but did not object. The fire moved behind a brass screen. Rain traced silver lines down the tall windows. Claire rested one hand on the book. "My mother used to call me doctor. Were you going to become a practical nurse?" "Why?" She looked at the diagram embossed on the cover. "I liked knowing what to do when people were afraid." Dominic closed the folder. "And then your mother became ill." "Yes." "You stopped school to care for her. There was no one else. What happened to the rest of your family?" "My father left when I was 12. My aunt sent money twice and advice every week." Dominic said nothing. Claire turned the book toward him. "I thought the training would make it easier. Did it?" "It taught me what the doctors were not saying." The fire cracked. Claire remembered hospital rooms washed in blue light, machines with gentle alarms, doctors who looked at charts instead of faces. "I knew when the chemotherapy stopped working before my mother did. You did not tell her." "No." "Why?" "Because she still had hope." Dominic's expression became distant. "Hope can be cruel. So can truth. Truth does not pretend to be mercy." Claire studied him. "You sound experienced." His gaze returned to her. "Everyone in this house is experienced." That was not an answer. "You are learning from me. I am surviving you." The word should have offended him. Instead, he looked toward the fire. Claire waited. At last, Dominic spoke. "My father borrowed money from men who charged more than interest." His voice was quiet. He believed he could repay them after one successful shipment. He could not. "No." Dominic's thumb moved slowly across the edge of the closed folder. "I had a brother, Adrian. He was 14. Claire did not interrupt. The men took him as collateral. The word sounded obscene in the quiet library. What happened? Dominic looked into the flames. He did not come home. Claire felt the shape of the answer even though he had not spoken it directly. "How old were you, 16? And your father?" "He continued making promises." Dominic's mouth hardened. "That was when I learned that debt is only a polite word for a chain." Claire looked down at the book. "You paid mine because of him. I paid yours because it was useful. That is not what I asked. It is the answer I am giving." Claire almost pressed further. Then she saw the way his fingers had tightened against the folder. She opened the anatomy book instead. Dominic returned to his reports. They sat in silence until the fire burned low. Over the next 2 weeks, Claire began noticing failures no one else considered important. The staff had no clear emergency procedure. The kitchen workers did not know which rooms were reinforced. Only armed guards had access to the secure communication system. Medical kits were stored in locked cabinets. The rear stairwell had no backup lighting. The failures were small until they were not. Claire wrote them down. She used the back pages of an old housekeeping ledger, filling them with notes after each shift. She listed new lights, unlocked medical supplies, panic buttons, safe rooms, and a direct way for employees to report misconduct without going through the soldiers they feared. Noah found her measuring the width of the basement corridor. "What are you doing? Checking whether the pantry can hold the full kitchen staff. Why? Because it is the only reinforced room they can reach without crossing the main hall." Noah looked at the notebook in her hand. "You are redesigning my security plan. I am pointing out that your plan protects the men carrying guns. They are the ones defending the house. The cooks live here too." Noah crossed his arms. "Bring it to Dominic." Claire did. Dominic read every page while she stood in front of his desk. He asked no questions until he reached the final section. Anonymous reporting. Yes, to whom you and Noah. Anonymous accusations create problems. So does forcing employees to report dangerous men to their friends. Dominic looked up. Claire held his gaze. "You are referring to Cole. I am referring to the silence around him. He is gone. The silence is not." Dominic turned back to the pages. He read them again. Then he pressed a button on his desk. Noah entered moments later. Dominic placed the notebook in front of him. "Implement this." Noah picked it up. "All of it. All of it." Noah looked at Claire. "The medical stations will require new access rules. Then write them. The reinforced pantry needs ventilation. Install it." Noah nodded. "What position does Claire hold in this process?" Dominic leaned back. He looked at her. "What position do you want?" Claire had not expected the question. "I want the staff included in the safety meetings. That is not a position. It is a start." Dominic glanced at Noah. "Beginning tomorrow, Claire attends every estate operations meeting." Noah accepted the order. Claire did not. "I still have cleaning shifts, not during meetings. Someone has to cover them." Dominic's expression remained unreadable. "Then hire someone." Claire stared at him. "You say that as if people appear when you speak. They usually do." Noah coughed into his fist to hide something that might have been amusement. Claire looked at Dominic. "I am not becoming decorative. No one has ever accused you of that. Good." The meetings changed the rhythm of her days. Claire still wore the gray uniform, but she carried a notebook instead of a dusting cloth when she entered the security office. Guards who once ignored her now answered questions about evacuation routes and camera placement. Some resented her. Most were too afraid of Dominic to show it. Claire hated that her authority seemed to come from his interest in her. She worked twice as hard to make it come from competence. Late one evening, she found Dominic alone in the drawing room. He sat near the fireplace with a glass of bourbon and a file open across his knee. Claire entered to polish the brass fixtures. She expected him to leave or tell her to return later. He did neither. She knelt beside the hearth. The room settled into a quiet rhythm. Cloth against metal, paper turning beneath his hand, fire moving behind the screen. After several minutes, Dominic spoke. "They are afraid of you." Claire continued polishing. "They are afraid of what you might do if they upset me. That distinction does not matter to them. It matters to me." Dominic set the file aside. "Does their distance bother you?" "It is quiet." "You prefer quiet." "I used to." He watched her. Claire sat back on her heels. "Now it feels like everyone stops breathing when I enter a room. They do not know the rules. What rules how close they may stand, whether they may speak to you, whether looking at you is dangerous." Claire turned the cloth over in her hand. "You made me into a threat. I made you untouchable. That is not the same as being safe." Dominic rose from the chair. He walked toward the fireplace and stopped in front of her. Claire stood. His eyes moved to the fading bruises along her throat. "May I?" The question was quiet. Claire knew what he meant. She nodded. Dominic lifted his hand. His fingers touched the edge of the bruise near her collarbone. The contact was careful. Claire's breath caught, but she did not move away. "Healing," he said. "You gave me expensive cream. It was not expensive. It came in a glass jar with gold letters. That does not make it effective. It worked." His thumb moved once across her skin. The touch was too gentle for the man attached to it. Claire looked at his bruised knuckles. They are healing too. Dominic lowered his hand. She caught his wrist. The movement surprised both of them. Claire turned his hand toward the firelight. A thin cut remained across one knuckle. You should have let the doctor look at this. It is nothing. That is what men say when they want women to stop asking questions. Dominic watched her take a small strip of clean cloth from her pocket. She wrapped it around the cut. Her fingers moved with practiced precision. You carry bandages now, he said. I work in a house full of men who think bleeding is a personality. For the first time, Dominic laughed. It was brief and low. Claire looked up. The sound changed his face. Then it was gone. She finished the bandage but did not release his hand. Dominic looked at her mouth. The small scar on her lower lip had faded to pink. The room became very quiet. His free hand rose toward her face. He stopped before touching her. Tell me to stop. Claire remembered the kitchen, the locked door, the way he had touched her chin before asking permission. You did not ask the first time. Dominic withdrew at once. Claire tightened her fingers around his wrist. I did not say stop. His eyes darkened. He stepped closer. The heat of the fire pressed against Claire's back. Dominic's hand reached her cheek. This time she leaned into it. His thumb rested beneath her scar. Their faces were inches apart. Then Dominic lowered his hand. He stepped away. Claire released him. You are still deciding whether to leave, he said. I stayed. That is not the same as choosing me. Before she could answer, the drawing room door opened. Noah entered carrying a sealed folder. His expression erased the warmth from the room. We lost another truck. Dominic turned. We're near the Indiana border. Drivers missing. Noah handed him the folder. Marcus Vale's people were seen near the route. Dominic opened it. Claire saw photographs of an abandoned vehicle, broken glass, and blood on the driver's seat. Noah continued. The route changed 6 hours before departure. Only 7 people knew. Someone talked, Dominic said. Yes. Claire thought of the photograph beneath her door. Someone inside the house. Someone who knew Cole's locker. Someone who could reach the staff corridor. Dominic looked at her. Go to your room. Claire held his gaze. That sounded like an order. It is. She left without arguing, but she did not go directly to the staff wing. In the second-floor corridor, she passed the accounting office. The frosted glass door stood slightly open. A man stepped out. Ethan Ward. He was one of Dominic's senior lieutenants, a quiet man with dark hair and an expensive gray suit. Claire had seen him at security meetings, though he rarely spoke to her. He closed the door behind him. The accounting office was empty after 9. It was almost midnight. Ethan looked at Claire. Lost, no. His gaze moved to the notebook in her hand. You attend meetings now. Yes, still wear the uniform. Claire looked toward the closed office door. Some people prefer being underestimated. Ethan smiled. It did not reach his eyes. Careful, Claire. He walked past her. The faint smell of cigarette smoke remained after he turned the corner. Claire waited until his footsteps faded. Then she continued toward her room. The following evening, Dominic stood beside the iron gates with a car waiting behind him. Rain moved across the road beyond the property. He held the severance envelope Claire had left untouched in his study. She stopped several feet away. What is this A choice? You already gave me one. I am giving it again. Dominic held out the envelope. Marcus Vale is moving against my roots. Someone inside this house is helping him. Claire did not take it. You believe the photograph was connected? Yes, and you want me gone. I want you beyond his reach. Claire looked through the gates. The road led south toward Chicago, toward her apartment, toward a life without armed guards, secret meetings, or blood in the carpet. She could finish nursing school. She could sleep without listening for footsteps. She could become invisible somewhere safer. Dominic watched her without moving. If you stay, he said, this house will not become gentle. I know. The men around me will not become kinder. I know. I will not become kinder. Claire looked at him. You asked me once whether I was afraid of you. You said yes, I still am. His jaw tightened. Then leave. Claire stepped closer. Fear is honest. He recognized his own words. You told me that. She took the envelope from his hand. For 1 second, Dominic's face closed. Claire placed it against his chest. Then she released it. But fear should point in the correct direction. Dominic looked down at the envelope. Claire walked past him toward Blackthorn Manor. At an upstairs window, a curtain shifted. Ethan Ward stood in the shadow of the glass with a phone pressed to his ear. Claire could not hear his voice from the courtyard. She did not see the cold satisfaction in his eyes. "She chose to stay," he said. A man answered from the other end of the line. "Then she stays when the house burns." The first sign that Blackthorn Manor was preparing for war was not the armed guards at the gates. It was the silence. By late November, freezing rain had turned the stone paths slick and black. Lake Michigan vanished behind a wall of fog. Wind pressed against the windows in long, low breaths, making the old glass tremble inside its frames. Inside the manor, every light was on. Men moved through the halls with rifles held openly against their chests. Security teams checked locks twice. Vehicles circled the property before entering the underground garage. No one drank. No one laughed. Dominic had called a meeting with 3 representatives from the industrial district. The men controlled warehouses, trucking routes, and union crews along the southern edge of Chicago. For years, they had worked with both Dominic Russo and Marcus Vale without choosing a side. That night, Dominic intended to force a choice. Claire stood in the lower kitchen with a clipboard pressed against her ribs. Her gray uniform had been replaced by dark trousers and a simple black blouse during operations meetings, but she still wore the same worn shoes. They made almost no sound against the tile. Around her, the kitchen staff prepared trays of coffee and food no one expected the guests to eat. Claire checked the emergency cabinet. Gauze, antiseptic, flashlights, batteries, 2 portable radios. Everything was where it belonged. She closed the cabinet and looked toward the reinforced pantry door. "Mrs. Bell," the head cook turned from the stove, "if the alarm sounds, you take everyone into the pantry. Do not wait for me." Mrs. Bell wiped her hands on her apron. "You are staff too, I know. Then you come with us." Claire met her eyes. "If I can." The older woman did not like the answer. Neither did Claire. A radio on the counter crackled. Noah's voice filled the kitchen. "East gate secure. Guests entering now." Claire moved to the security monitor mounted near the pantry. 3 black sedans passed through the iron gates. Guards checked each vehicle beneath the floodlights. Rain shone across the roofs like liquid glass. The lead car stopped near the front entrance. Dominic waited beneath the stone archway. He wore a black suit and a dark overcoat. His face was calm, but Claire had seen him enough to recognize the tension in the way he held his shoulders. He glanced toward one of the cameras. For 1 second it felt as though he were looking directly at her. Then he turned to greet the arriving men. Claire lowered her eyes to the clipboard. She had made her decision at the gates. She had chosen to stay. That did not mean fear had disappeared. It meant fear no longer made the decision for her. At 8:15, the representatives entered the formal dining room. At 8:20, Dominic ordered the doors closed. At 8:30, the rain became sleet. Claire walked the service corridors, checking emergency lights and staff stations. She reached the West Hall and stopped. Ethan Ward stood beside an electrical panel near the old conservatory. The panel door was open. His right hand rested inside it. Claire looked at the wires. "What are you doing?" Ethan closed the panel. He wore a dark gray suit with no tie. His hair was damp from the rain, though Claire had not seen him enter from outside. "Checking the power." "That is not your job." He smiled. "Neither is redesigning security." Claire looked at the red indicator light on the panel. It should have been steady. It was blinking. "What did you touch? Nothing important." She reached for the panel. Ethan stepped between her and the wall. The smile remained on his face. "You should go back to the kitchen." Claire did not move. "The alarm circuit runs through this panel. You have learned a great deal. Move." His eyes hardened. For a moment neither of them spoke. Then footsteps sounded from the end of the corridor. One of Noah's guards approached. Ethan stepped aside. The smile returned. "Wrong hallway, Claire." Claire opened the panel. The alarm bypass switch had been lowered. She raised it. Nothing happened. The indicator continued blinking. She reached for her radio. The first explosion struck the front gate. The sound did not resemble thunder. It was deeper, closer. The entire manor jumped beneath her feet. Glass burst from the conservatory windows. The pressure threw Claire into the wall. Her shoulder struck stone. The radio flew from her hand and disappeared beneath a cabinet. The lights went out. For half a second, the house became completely black. Then the emergency system flickered on. Red light filled the corridor. A second explosion tore through the east side of the manor. Somewhere below, people screamed. Gunfire followed. It came in overlapping bursts, sharp and mechanical, cutting through walls and doors. Claire pushed herself upright. Her ears rang. The guard at the end of the corridor was on the floor. Blood spread beneath his head. Ethan was gone. Claire looked toward the open electrical panel. The alarm had not activated. No automated lockdown. No signal to the staff. Someone had disabled the entire system. Claire dropped to her knees and reached beneath the cabinet. Her fingers found the radio. The casing was cracked, but the screen still glowed. She pressed the transmit button. Noah. Static answered. Noah, the alarm circuit was bypassed. Ethan was at the west panel. A burst of gunfire swallowed the response. Then Noah's voice came through. Claire, get below ground. The staff do not know the alarm failed. Get them into the pantry. Where is Dominic? No answer. Noah. The radio hissed. Formal dining room, main level. Another explosion shook dust from the ceiling. Claire ran. She used the west service staircase, avoiding the central hall. The narrow steps twisted between the walls built a century earlier for servants carrying coal and linens. Gunfire continued beneath her. She reached the kitchen. Panic had taken control. One dishwasher stood beside the sink with both hands over his ears. A young server cried near the pantry. Mrs. Bell was trying to move 3 people at once. Claire grabbed the heavy brass bell mounted near the service board. She rang it. The sharp sound cut through the confusion. Everyone looked at her. Pantry, now. Mrs. Bell pointed toward the ceiling. What is happening? The house has been breached. The young server began to sob. Claire stepped in front of her. Look at me, the girl tried. Can you walk? She nodded, then take her hand. Claire pointed to another kitchen worker. You stay together. You do not stop until the door is locked. The staff began moving. Claire crossed to the security controls beside the pantry. The electronic system remained dead. She opened the manual panel and pulled the steel lever inside. A heavy barrier dropped across the lower corridor. Another sealed the kitchen's rear entrance. The sound shook the room. Mrs. Bell counted the staff as they entered the pantry. One missing. Who Danny? The dishwasher. Claire looked toward the sink. He was gone. A steel tray lay on the floor near the pantry hall. Claire took the radio. Lock the door. Mrs. Bell grabbed her arm. Claire, lock it. You cannot go out there. Danny is 17. So are some of the men shooting at us. Claire pulled free. Lock the door behind me. She stepped into the corridor. The manual barrier had divided the lower floor into separate zones. Smoke moved beneath the ceiling. The red emergency lights turned every surface the color of blood. Claire called Danny's name. No answer. She moved toward the laundry room. A shadow shifted near the service stairs. Claire flattened herself against the wall. A man in dark tactical clothing crossed the upper landing. He wore a black vest and carried a compact rifle. Not one of Dominic's men. Claire stopped breathing. The attacker looked toward the kitchen. She pressed herself deeper into the narrow space beside a linen cabinet. His boots struck the concrete steps. 1, 2, 3. The radio in Claire's hand crackled. The man stopped. Claire closed her eyes. Noah's voice whispered through the damaged speaker. Lower team report. The attacker turned toward the sound. Claire threw the radio across the corridor. It struck the far wall. The man raised his weapon toward it. Claire pulled the red emergency lever beside the laundry door. A steel fire barrier dropped from the ceiling. It struck the attacker across the shoulder and drove him to the ground. His rifle slid across the floor. Claire ran. She heard him curse behind her. She reached the laundry room and found Danny crouched between 2 industrial machines. His face was white. I heard shooting. Claire grabbed his hand. We are going back. I cannot move. Yes, you can. My legs. Do not look at them. Look at me. He lifted his eyes. Claire tightened her grip. Stand. Danny stood. The attacker slammed against the fire barrier behind them. Metal groaned. Claire pulled Danny through the corridor. They reached the kitchen. Mrs. Bell opened the pantry door just wide enough for them to enter. Claire pushed Danny inside. He caught her wrist. You are coming too. Claire looked toward the service stairs. Dominic was somewhere above them. The alarm was disabled. Ethan was missing. She thought of the black vehicles at the gate, the men in the dining room, the route information that had been leaked. This attack had been planned from inside the house. Claire looked at Mrs. Bell. Count everyone again. Mrs. Bell stared at her. Where are you going to warn Dominic? No. Claire placed the pantry key in her hand. You do not open this door unless Noah gives the code. Mrs. Bell's eyes filled with anger. You think because he paid your debt you owe him your life? Claire shook her head. No. She closed the pantry door. I am going because it is mine. The lock engaged. Claire took the service stairs. The manor groaned around her. Smoke thickened as she climbed. The smell of burning wood mixed with gunpowder and wet stone. At the first landing she found another guard lying against the wall. His eyes were open. His chest was still. Claire took the radio from his vest. Dominic, static. Dominic, Ethan disabled the alarm. He may be working with Vale, a voice answered. Not Dominic. Claire. Noah sounded out of breath. We know. Ethan opened the east gate. Where is he? Unknown. Dominic moving to the second floor. Claire continued upward. You were ordered below ground. Noah. What I found, Danny. Silence. Then Noah understood why she had not obeyed. Second floor service hall is clear for now, he said. Avoid the main stairs. Claire reached the upper landing. The corridor had been transformed. A chandelier lay shattered across the floor. Framed paintings hung at angles. Bullet holes marked the walls. She moved through the smoke. The accounting office stood open at the far end of the hall. Two men emerged. Neither wore Russo colors. One saw Claire immediately. His rifle came up. There was no warning, no hesitation. Claire froze. The muzzle centered on her chest. A gunshot exploded from the main staircase. The attacker was thrown backward into the office doorway. Blood struck the frosted glass. The second man spun. Another shot tore through his shoulder. He dropped his weapon and fell against the wall. Dominic stepped through the smoke. His coat was gone. His white shirt had turned dark along the left side of his body. A large revolver rested in his right hand. His face held no emotion. Then he saw Claire. Everything changed. He crossed the corridor without checking the men on the floor. His boots crushed glass beneath them. Are you hit? The question came out hard and raw. Claire shook her head. Dominic grabbed her shoulders. His eyes moved over her body, her arms, her neck, her waist. He turned her slightly, searching for blood. I am not hit. Are you sure? Yes. His hand stopped. For 1 second his forehead almost touched hers. Then Claire saw the blood spreading across his shirt. You are bleeding. It is a graze. That is not a graze. We move. He caught her hand. His fingers closed around hers with painful force. Gunfire erupted below. Dominic pulled her toward the master suite. Claire stumbled over broken plaster. Ethan disabled the alarms, I know. He opened the gate, I know. He left the photograph. Dominic looked at her. You know that he wanted me afraid. A shadow moved inside a doorway ahead. Dominic stopped. He pushed Claire behind him. Ethan stepped into the corridor. He held a pistol in both hands. Rainwater darkened the shoulders of his suit. Dust covered one side of his face. Dominic raised the revolver. Ethan aimed at his chest. Neither man fired. You should have left the girl at the gate, Ethan said. Dominic's voice remained steady. You should have taken your own advice. Ethan smiled. Marcus offered me the southern routes. He offered you something he does not own. He will after tonight. Dominic shifted his stance. Claire felt the weakness in him. His injured side pulled against every breath. Blood ran beneath his shirt and disappeared into his waistband. Ethan saw it too. You built this house around fear, he said. Then you let a maid change the rules. Claire looked toward the wall. A fire extinguisher hung several feet away. Ethan continued. Cole understood what you forgot. Men follow strength. They do not follow guilt. Dominic's expression darkened. You left the photograph. I wanted her to know what happened to people who trusted you. You opened my gate for Vale. I opened it for the future. Dominic raised the revolver higher. His hand shook once. Ethan smiled. You are losing blood. Claire moved slightly. Ethan's pistol turned toward her. Stay where you are. Dominic stepped in front of her. Ethan laughed. There it is. His eyes moved between them. The great Dominic Russo standing in front of a servant. Her name is Claire. Yes. Ethan's smile widened. That was the first mistake. Claire looked at the extinguisher again. 3 steps, too far. She lowered her hands slowly. Ethan watched her. "Do not move, I am not." She shifted her weight. Dominic knew what she intended. His eyes did not leave Ethan. "Claire," his voice carried warning. She ignored it. Ethan tightened his grip. "I said do not move." Claire reached. Her fingers closed around the extinguisher handle. Ethan fired. Dominic pulled Claire down. The bullet struck the wall above them. Claire ripped the extinguisher free and pulled the pin. She sprayed Ethan's face. White chemical powder exploded across the corridor. Ethan cursed and fired blindly. The shot struck the floor. Dominic rose onto one knee. His revolver fired once. The sound shook the hallway. Ethan jerked backward. The pistol fell from his hand. He collapsed against the wall and slid to the floor. White powder covered his suit. A dark stain spread across his chest. Dominic remained kneeling. The revolver lowered. Claire dropped the extinguisher. She turned toward him. His face had gone pale. Dominic. He tried to stand. His left leg gave way. Claire caught his arm. His weight nearly pulled her down. "I am fine," he said. "You are not. We need the panic room." They moved toward the master suite. Claire supported as much of him as she could. Dominic kept the revolver in his free hand. The bedroom door stood open. He pushed Claire inside and kicked it shut. A heavy wooden bar waited beside the frame. He dropped it into place. Someone shouted in the hallway. Dominic crossed to the fireplace. He pressed 3 carved sections of the mantel in a precise order. A hidden mechanism clicked. The stone hearth moved outward. A narrow concrete passage appeared behind it. Red emergency lights glowed inside. Dominic pointed toward the opening. "Get in." Claire looked at him. "You first." "I have to coordinate the defense. You can barely stand. I have survived worse. Then survive this inside." He reached for her waist. Claire stepped back. "Do not, Claire. You are bleeding through your shirt. The lower floor is still contested. Noah is alive. He does not have full command. He does now." Dominic grabbed her. His hands closed around her waist. He lifted her toward the opening. Claire caught his shirt with both fists. "If you lock me inside and die out here, I will never forgive you. That is a risk I am willing to take. I am not." The bedroom door shook. Someone slammed into it from the hallway. The wooden bar jumped inside its brackets. Dominic looked toward the sound. Claire held tighter. "You brought me into the blast radius." His eyes returned to hers. "You told me what this life was." The door shook again. "Do not shut me out of it now." For 1 second, Dominic did not move. Then the bedroom door splintered near the lock. He pushed Claire into the passage. This time, he entered behind her. The stone door closed. The locking mechanism engaged with a heavy metal sound. The gunfire vanished. Silence fell so quickly that Claire heard the blood dripping from Dominic's shirt onto the floor. He took 1 step, then another. His back struck the concrete wall. He slid down. The revolver fell from his hand. "Dominic." Claire dropped beside him. The panic room was small and windowless. A narrow cot rested against one wall. Medical supplies filled a metal cabinet. A bank of monitors showed different rooms throughout the estate. Dominic closed his eyes. His breathing sounded wet. Claire opened his shirt. The fabric had stuck to the wound. She pulled it away carefully. The bullet had entered beneath his left ribs and exited through his back. Blood continued flowing from both wounds. "You said it was a graze. It felt smaller earlier." Claire looked at him. "Do not make jokes." "I was not." She opened the medical cabinet. Bandages, antiseptic, pressure dressings, scissors. Her hands moved before fear could stop them. She cut away the rest of his shirt. Dominic watched her through half-closed eyes. "You remember your training. I remember enough." "That does not sound certain. It is more certain than you are." She opened the antiseptic. "This will hurt. Do it." Claire poured it into the wound. Dominic's body locked. His head struck the wall behind him. A low sound tore from his throat. His right hand shot out and closed around Claire's thigh. His fingers dug into her skin. She did not pull away. She packed gauze into the wound and pressed down. Blood soaked through immediately. Dominic's breathing became shallow. "Look at me." His eyes remained closed. "Dominic." No response. Claire caught his face between her hands. Look at me." His eyes opened. The command hung between them. Months earlier, he had stood over her in the kitchen and forced her to meet his gaze. Now she knelt in his blood and did the same. "You made me tell the truth when I was terrified," Claire said. Dominic tried to speak. She pressed harder against the wound. "Now you tell me the truth." His face tightened with pain. "Are you leaving me in this room? No. I cannot hear you. I said no. Say it like an order." A faint curve touched his mouth. It disappeared beneath another wave of pain. "I am not dying tonight." Claire held his gaze. "Good." She added another pressure dressing. "Because I have not decided what to do with you yet." Dominic's hand loosened against her thigh. His fingers slid to the floor. Claire placed his palm over hers. "Press." He obeyed. On the monitors, men moved through the ruined halls. Some wore Dominic's colors, others did not. Smoke filled the first floor. The formal dining room was burning. Claire found Noah on one screen leading 3 guards toward the east entrance. She pressed the communication button. "Noah." Static answered, then his voice. "Claire, we are in the panic room. Dominic has a gunshot wound beneath the left ribs. The bullet passed through." "Is he conscious?" "Yes." Dominic opened his mouth. Claire pressed the button again before he could speak. "He is losing blood." Noah's expression changed on the monitor. "We are clearing the upper floor. Send the doctor as soon as the corridor is secure." The connection failed. Claire returned both hands to the wound. Dominic watched her. "You should have stayed in the pantry. I found Danny. Who, the dishwasher?" Dominic blinked slowly. "You went back for him?" "Yes." "Then you came upstairs?" "Yes." "You were looking for a way out?" Claire did not answer. Dominic's voice weakened. "You were looking for me." The time for lying had passed. "Yes." His eyes closed again. Claire leaned closer. "Keep them open. I am tired. I do not care. That is cold. You like cold, not from you." The words were barely audible. Claire swallowed. Blood warmed her hands. "I have you." Dominic looked at her. His face was pale beneath the red emergency light. "I know." For nearly 2 hours, Claire kept pressure on the wound. She watched the monitors. She counted Dominic's breaths. She forced him to answer questions whenever his eyes drifted shut. His full name, the date, the number of windows in the kitchen. He answered the final question incorrectly. "There are 6, he murmured. "There are 4. I own the house, and you are wrong." A weak breath passed through him. It might have been a laugh. On the monitors, the fighting began to slow. Noah's men moved room by room. One attacker surrendered near the eastern staircase. Another fell in the courtyard. The fire suppression system finally activated in the dining room. Water poured from the ceiling. A green signal appeared on the security display. Upper floor secure. Claire released a breath she had not realized she was holding. Then another message flashed across the monitor. "Manual override detected." The panic room door control turned from green to red. Claire looked toward the stone entrance. Someone outside was entering the code. Dominic reached for the revolver. His fingers closed on empty air. Claire saw the weapon lying near the cot. She picked it up. The metal felt enormous in her hands. The locking mechanism began to move. One bolt released, then another. Claire stood between Dominic and the door. She raised the revolver with both hands. The stone panel opened several inches. A shadow appeared in the gap. The shadow in the doorway raised both hands. "Claire." Noah's voice came through the narrow opening. She kept the revolver aimed at his chest. Code. Noah stopped moving. 7, 2, black, 4. Claire looked toward the monitor. The code matched the emergency protocol they had written together. Only then did she lower the weapon. Noah pushed the stone door open. 2 guards stood behind him. Dr. Harris waited farther back with a medical bag in one hand and blood already staining the knees of her blue scrubs. Noah saw Dominic against the wall. His face changed. "Boss, I am alive," Dominic said. His voice was weak, but the command remained inside it. Dr. Harris entered and dropped beside him. She examined Claire's pressure dressing. "You packed the wound?" "Yes." "How long has he been bleeding?" "Almost 2 hours." The doctor looked at Claire's hands. Blood had dried between her fingers and beneath her nails. "You kept him alive." Dominic opened his eyes. "She usually does what she is told." Claire looked at him. No one here believes that. Noah almost smiled. It vanished when he looked back toward the corridor. The upper floor is secure. The remaining attackers are contained near the east garage, Marcus Dominic asked. Not among the dead. Dominic's jaw tightened. He did not come himself. No, coward. Dr. Harris cut away the soaked dressing. Dominic's body stiffened. Claire moved closer before she could stop herself. His hand found hers. The doctor noticed but said nothing. We need to move him, she said. The bullet passed through, but he has lost too much blood. Dominic released Claire's hand and tried to stand. Dr. Harris pressed one palm against his shoulder. No, I have men outside. You also have a hole through your side. They need orders. Noah stepped forward. They have them. Dominic looked at him. Noah held his gaze. The house is secure. The staff are accounted for. The surviving attackers are restrained. I can hold the perimeter until morning. Dominic remained silent. Accepting help seemed to cost him more than blood. Claire knelt beside him. You told me fear should point in the correct direction. His eyes moved to her. Right now you should fear the woman with the medical bag. Dr. Harris began preparing an injection. She is correct. Dominic looked at the needle. I dislike both of you. Claire tightened her fingers around his. You can complain after you survive. The sedative entered his arm. His grip weakened. Before his eyes closed, he looked at Claire. Not Noah, not the doctor. Claire, do not leave. The words were quiet enough that no one else should have heard. Everyone did. Claire did not pretend otherwise. I am here. Dominic finally allowed the darkness to take him. The next several hours passed beneath white medical lights. Dr. Harris treated Dominic in a reinforced bedroom on the west side of the manor. The estate had a private surgical room, but the east corridor leading to it had been damaged during the assault. Claire waited outside. Her clothes were stiff with dried blood. A cut burned along her shoulder where the explosion had thrown her into the wall. Her thigh ached where Dominic's hand had gripped her in the panic room. She noticed none of it until Noah placed a blanket around her shoulders. You should sit down. Claire leaned against the wall. I am sitting in my mind. That is not how chairs work. She looked at him. Noah's face was gray with exhaustion. Blood marked the side of his neck, though the wound appeared shallow. How many? He knew what she meant. 6 of ours. Claire closed her eyes. Staff 2 injured. No deaths. Danny safe. Mrs. Bell, angry. That means she is fine. Yes. Claire looked toward the closed bedroom door, and Marcus Vale Noah's expression hardened. He sent men to die in his place. Ethan dead. Claire thought of the photograph beneath her door, the blinking alarm circuit, the way Ethan had looked at her in the corridor as if she were still only a maid holding a clipboard. He wanted the house to burn. He nearly succeeded. No. Noah looked at her. Claire pulled the blanket tighter. He nearly got inside. The distinction mattered. Blackthorn Manor was damaged, windows were shattered, walls were broken, men were dead. But the people inside had fought for one another. The kitchen staff had survived because they knew where to go. Danny had survived because someone came back. Dominic had survived because Claire refused to leave him outside the panic room. The house had not burned. At dawn, Dr. Harris opened the bedroom door. He is stable. Claire's knees weakened. She caught the wall. Noah touched her elbow. She did not pull away. He will need rest, Dr. Harris continued. Real rest. Not the version men like him call rest. Can I see him? The doctor looked at Claire's blood-stained clothes. Yes. Dominic lay beneath white sheets. A bandage covered his left side. An intravenous line ran into his arm. Without the suit, the gun, and the hard expression, he looked younger. Not gentle. Never gentle. Only human. Claire sat beside the bed. For several minutes she listened to him breathe. Then she lowered her head onto her folded arms and slept. When Dominic woke, sunlight had reached the windows. Claire was still beside him. He moved one hand. His fingers brushed her hair. She woke instantly. Do not move. His mouth curved faintly. You have become comfortable giving orders. You have become talented at ignoring them. He looked around the room. The house standing, Noah alive, the staff alive, Vale gone. Dominic's eyes hardened. Claire saw the man inside him return, the part that made plans from blood and betrayal. He will not remain gone. Dominic said. I know, you understand that this is not finished. Yes. Dominic studied her face. You should be afraid. I am. Then why are you still here? Claire sat back, because fear is not the same as regret. His gaze held hers. A knock sounded. Noah entered, carrying Ethan's phone inside a clear evidence bag. We opened it. Dominic reached for the device. Claire took it first. You are not working. Dominic stared at her. Noah looked toward the ceiling. Claire handed the phone to Noah. You tell him. Noah almost laughed again. There are messages connecting Ethan to Marcus Vale. Routes, security schedules, gate codes. Enough to identify 3 warehouses and 2 financial accounts. Dominic settled back against the pillow. Freeze the accounts. Already done. Take the warehouses. Teams are moving. Dominic looked at him. You moved without my order. Noah's expression remained steady. Claire wrote that command succession should be automatic during a breach. Dominic turned toward her. Claire lifted one shoulder carefully. You approved the plan. For a moment he said nothing. Then he looked back at Noah. Good. Noah left. Dominic watched the door close. You changed my house. Claire looked toward the broken window beyond the curtains. It needed changing. So do I. She returned her attention to him. That depends on whether you are capable of listening when no one is afraid enough to agree. Dominic's eyes narrowed. You are never afraid enough. I am learning. He reached for her hand. This time Claire gave it willingly. 3 days later, the dead were buried. The funerals took place beneath a gray sky at a private cemetery west of the city. 6 black coffins rested in a row. Dominic attended despite Dr. Harris ordering him to remain in bed. He stood beneath a black coat with one hand hidden near his bandaged side. Claire stood beside him, not behind. The families received Money Home's education funds and lifelong support. When Samuel first described the payments as operational expenses, Claire crossed out the phrase. They were people, she said. Samuel looked toward Dominic. Dominic took the document. He read Claire's correction. Then he signed beneath it. No one argued. By the end of the week, the windows of Blackthorn Manor had been boarded. Work crews moved through the halls. The smell of smoke remained in the wood. The surviving staff returned to their routines slowly. Claire did not return to her uniform. Samuel called her into the accounting office and placed a contract before her. She read the title twice. Director of Estate Operations and Staff Welfare. The role included authority over household hiring, safety planning, medical supplies, staff complaints, and emergency training. A tuition fund had been included for her to complete nursing school. Claire turned the page. Her salary was nearly 4 times what she had earned as a maid. No repayment clause, no. No hidden obligation, no. No statement saying I belong to the owner of the house. Samuel removed his glasses. He suggested language. Claire stared at him. Samuel cleared his throat. I removed it. Good. He disagreed. I am sure he did. Samuel placed a pen beside the contract. Claire signed her name. That night she returned to the lower kitchen. The room had escaped most of the damage. The heavy oak door had protected it from smoke and debris. The copper pan from the night Cole attacked her hung above the sink. Someone had polished it until it shone. Claire walked to the basin and turned on warm water. A faint line of dried blood remained beneath one fingernail. She washed it away. The kitchen door opened. Dominic entered wearing a black shirt beneath a shoulder holster. He moved carefully, though he tried to hide it. His eyes went to her clothes. Dark trousers, cream blouse, no gray uniform. No uniform, he said. You noticed. I notice everything in my house. Claire dried her hands. That sentence needs work. Dominic closed the door behind him. He did not lock it. Claire looked toward the deadbolt. He followed her gaze. The door is open. You keep saying that like you want me to leave. I want to know you can. Claire placed the towel on the counter. The debt did not keep me here. I know. Fear did not keep me here. I know. She walked toward him. You did. Something guarded entered his face. Do not make me into something better than I am. I know what you are. I kill people. I noticed. I control everything around me. You try. A faint smile touched his mouth. It disappeared quickly. If you stay beside me, people will use you to reach me. They already did, and they will again. Then stop deciding what I can survive. Dominic stepped closer. His hand rose toward her face. He stopped before touching her. May I? The question held more weight than any declaration. Claire nodded. His palm settled against her cheek. The same hand had broken men. With her it remained still. "You stay beside me," he said, "and no one touches you." Claire placed her hand over his. "That is not the agreement." His eyes darkened. "I stay because I choose you." She pressed his palm closer. "And you remember that I am not property." "No." Dominic leaned nearer. "You are the only person in this house who can tell me no. Then listen carefully. I am listening. No more sending me away when you are hurt." His jaw tightened. "Difficult. Learn. No more paying my problems away without asking. Very difficult. Learn faster." Dominic's thumb moved across her cheek. "Anything else?" Claire looked at the scar beneath his collar. "No more pretending this is only protection." Silence settled between them. The refrigerator hummed in the corner. Rain touched the windows. Dominic lowered his forehead to hers. "It stopped being only protection the night I saw your blood in my sink." Claire's breath caught. "You knew my name before that, I did. Why you were the only person in this house who looked at injured men and saw pain before weakness." His voice dropped. "I wanted to know who you were." Claire held his gaze. "And now I know." He leaned down slowly enough for her to step away. Claire did not. The kiss began with restraint. Then the restraint broke. It carried months of anger, fear, silence, and desire. Claire gripped the front of his shirt, careful of the wound beneath it. Dominic held her as if the walls might fall again. When they separated, neither moved far. "You understand what this makes you," he said. Claire looked toward the kitchen door. Months earlier, Dominic had locked it because she was terrified and bleeding. Now she walked to the deadbolt. She turned it herself. The click echoed through the room. Then she faced him. "It makes me the woman who chose to stay." Outside, snow began to fall over the iron gates of Blackthorn Manor. Inside, the copper pan hung clean above the sink. Claire no longer scrubbed at stains that were not there. Dominic no longer stood between her and the door. The frightened maid had not become fearless. She had become powerful enough to decide what her fear meant. And the man who had spent his life protecting everything he believed belonged to him had finally met the one person he could never own. Only love.